Humankind's launch day patch is set to deliver some really big changes, as you can see on screen, including new features and a whole load of rebalancing. In today's video, I'm going to take you through Humankind's launch day patch, including changes to a new system, pollution, diplomacy, religion, some changes to the AI, some wider rebalancing, and a couple of things about Mac OS and quality of life improvements. Without any further ado, let's jump straight in. And first up, we have the pollution system. Now, this is something that will hopefully add more detail and balance to the late game. The developers have noted that the pollution system will be added to the game towards the end of Era 5. What does that mean? Well, it's going to be something that's largely going to influence us from the end of the industrial era onwards into the modern day. We would expect that. If we think about Civilization 6's mechanics around pollution and climate change, that sort of is broadly in line with them. So a very exciting system that will hopefully see some more dynamic gameplay in the late game. And this actually ties in really well with my second point, and that's changes to diplomacy. Now, diplomacy across the board in 4X games is really hard to manage, particularly in single player. How do you make the AI more intelligent and more able to deal with quite advanced diplomatic functions? Now, the developers have noted that on release day, that the diplomacy is an area that they really want to tackle, and they received a lot of feedback from the closed beta. They've improved and added some more depth to the diplomatic system. Namely, this is largely, from what we can tell, actually features rather than specific AI improvements around dealing with diplomacy. This includes things like new treaty types. I think we'll see this particularly in the later eras of the game. You can see how certain treaties around immigration or environmental issues could really shape up Humankind's diplomacy system in the late game. They've also said that there'll be some clearer UI. So the user experience around dealing with diplomacy and figuring out how to move between different levels of trade negotiation, war and peace treaties, so on and so forth, should be a lot easier for us. Speaking of changes to those kinds of system, one system in particular that they noted, and I would note this from my own closed beta feedback video, was religion. Religion felt very strong, but also very narrow. You just sort of chose your beliefs, you got these really wonderful bonuses, say, double your influence, or plus 20 faith per holy site, these really linear, simple, good bonuses. Now, they've said they want to change up the religious system, particularly the religious tenets, to give more conditional effects instead of always desirable blanket bonuses. In practice, this means there'll probably be some kind of trade-off or conditionality to religion. You'll need to be, for example, settled along a river to make advantage of, say, holy site adjacencies with rivers. We see Civilization as a franchise deal with religion in a very different way. If you think about religious pantheons in Civ, they usually require certain elemental or conditional features to make it work, i.e. more faith from pastures. We're seeing Humankind shift more towards this with this release day patch, and I think that's a good thing for the religious system in Humankind. It allows more individuality and also some trade-offs, which is really what it desperately needed, because during the beta and during all the other times we've played the game, religion in Humankind has been more of a set net benefit with no issues to worry about. So really great to see that they're rebalancing that. And all of these issues, diplomacy, religion, even the new pollution system in Humankind, relate back to my fourth point, and that is around the AI. Again, the developers have not given us specific numbers here. It's quite hard to quantify and understand what a good AI looks like in Humankind, but what they have said is that on release day, we will see improvements to the way that AI deals with economies and armies, particularly larger scale armies. We expect to see the AI handle combat a little bit better, although Humankind's combat system is already quite good. So I'll be really interested to see how that plays out. Moreover, I'd like to see how the AI's interaction with the economy laces in with their interaction with new diplomatic features. Because one of the things that could go horribly wrong here for us is if all of these new features, like pollution, like diplomacy, aren't able to be dealt with by the AI, it could suffer from sort of a snowballing effect where the game is becoming more complex, there's more layers to it, and the AI can't keep up. So it's really important here that the developers keep a hold of their AI, and it sounds like they will. Some other minor changes to it, they've also noted that the levels of difficulty will be rebalanced. Now, this could have a completely separate video, so I won't hold on this point for too long, but it does pay to note that in most 4X games, difficulty tends to scale by simply buffing the AI, give them 20% more influence, give them 20% more gold, make their units 50% stronger. I hope that Humankind doesn't continue to go down this route. It already has up until now, so it will be interesting to see how that plays out in the future. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to watch this space and crucially test it in-game, because that's how we'll really learn about the AI. However, there are more changes coming to Humankind, and some of them are still quite spicy. So this next one is really all-encompassing, a broad change across rebalancing not only research costs, era start thresholds, but also the game duration. And this is something that you guys have talked to me about a lot in the comments on my video. How can we be in the medieval era when the year is only 1388 BC, for example? The developers are aware about this, and it sounds like they're completely rebalancing the eras to bring them in line with where they should be. Hopefully we should see slightly more historical realism based on how long these eras last for, because during the beta it was definitely an issue that you could blast through them very early and be well ahead of where you should be. So the developers have really paid close attention to rebalancing not only the scientific costs for individual technologies within an era, but also the era star thresholds as a whole that should keep us in the era we need to be for longer and ensure that the late game eras don't simply fly by, which is basically where they were headed prior to this patch. So that's really, really important. Building onto this, there are but two more things. Second last up, it is the quality of life improvements. Things like better description specifics so we can actually understand what they are. The developers have also added some additional video tutorials to help new players, which is nice because not all of us are learners who prefer to read and learn. Indeed, many of you watching this video may prefer to listen and learn or watch and learn. And it sounds like Amplitude Studios are doing a great job at implementing that into their game, which they need to do because 4X games are notoriously a little bit more complicated than the average first-person shooter, so to speak. And last but not least, unfortunately, some bad news for our Mac brethren. The Mac version of Humankind has been delayed by a few weeks. The developers have stressed that they do still value the Mac version, and it still holds very dear to their heart. Unfortunately, it won't be releasing at the same time as the PC version to give them more time to ensure it is equally deserving of Humankind's release, apparently. We will wait and see how long that version has been delayed. Apologies to you Mac players. Thank you very much for watching this video about Humankind's release day patch. If you enjoyed it, do subscribe for more Humankind. And until next time, everybody, take care, and I'll see you then.